I'm Jared Fry, General Manager of Medina TV.
Hi, and I'm Jacqueline Rinksmeyer, Executive Director of the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce. The mission of the Chamber of Commerce is to serve our member investors and promote business interests through economic development, business advocacy, and member services, which benefits the Greater Medina community. The Chamber is funded by voluntary membership from the business community. It is a not-for-profit, nonpartisan business organization, and we do not receive tax dollars to operate the organization. The Chamber does not endorse candidates, but strives to educate the voters on both the candidates and the issues. And we are pleased to partner with Medina TV to bring these interviews to you. This program would not be possible without this collaboration. So thank you to our interviewer, Jared Fry, and our producer, Matt Tomick.
And as always, the views expressed in these interviews do not necessarily reflect those of Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce. We thank you for tuning in to the 2022 Candidates Forum and remind you to vote on November 8th. Joining us now in studio is the candidate for Domestic Relations Judge, Pete Kirner. Pete, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. Why don't you start off first and just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Certainly. Personally or professionally?
You can do both.
Okay. Personally, I was born in Parma. I went to St. Ignatius High School. I went off to Syracuse University. Then I moved to Boston, where my brother and I renovated a two-family, 225-year-old house. I came back to Cleveland to go to law school. I entered into practice with my father about 16 years ago. My practice has been mostly in the area of domestic relations law. I've done a lot of guardian ad litem work where I represent kids in divorces and make recommendations to the court as to what I believe is in the children's best interest. I do a lot of what's called parenting coordinator work, which is where you have a quasi-judicial role of helping people navigate issues that they're having after their divorce is over, and the attempt is to try and keep them from having to go back to court to deal with those issues again. So 16 years of focused practice on domestic relations.
Okay. And then for the folks at home that may not have ever stepped foot in a courtroom, let alone domestic relations, kind of explain the role of a domestic relations judge.
Sure. The judge in domestic relations deals with divorces, custody, with child support, spousal support, deals with civil domestic violence, which result in protective orders, and deals with all post-decree matters. So once parties are divorced, there's certain things that remain modifiable. So custody is always modifiable, and child support are always modifiable. So those are things that the court deals with on a regular basis.
What do you see as some of the major challenges that face the judicial system today?
In domestic or in general?
Let's do in general first, and then we'll dive into domestic after that.
In general, from my perspective, I see some inconsistencies in charging across the board. I mean, if you're talking about criminal issues, in one state, somebody could get charged for one thing, in other state or other city, it's something that they could not charge a person on. So the prosecutor has a lot of power to charge or not charge based on their interpretation. In domestic relations, it's very difficult because it's personal, it's emotional, and you deal with people's perspective of often half of the story, right? Mm-hmm. Domestic relations, especially when you deal with children, is so fact-specific. And oftentimes people say, I can't believe that person got custody or parenting time or whatever, but they only know, the small snippet of facts that somebody lets them have. So being able to be in court, my work as a guardian, what I anticipate as my work as a judge is seeing all the facts and being able to balance those things out. One of the other challenges is how far do people want the court involved in their lives? You have parents who report, well, dad or mom let the child watch an R-rated movie, right? And okay, it depends on how old the child is, but how far does the court get involved with things like that? somebody wants the court to be more involved, and the court, has to deal with the statute in regards to allocating parental rights and responsibilities. So those are some of the challenges.
Now, like, you brought up a great point there. Sometimes you're tied to sometimes the statutes that are already in place as judge. But what are some things that you would like to see done with the domestic relations position here in Medina County if elected?
So I think it's a very hard question if you haven't been through the process. There's a lot of procedural things that need to be improved upon. The process needs to be smoother. Parties need to be involved and not involved. There's a balance of what is going to help the process and their divorce get to sooner. And there's it's a very emotional process, and that's a hard thing to curb. And parents make sometimes bad choices, and that's something that you can't really do much about. So the biggest challenge is to try and do your best to minimize the emotional impact and try and move these cases either towards settlement or toward trial on a slightly faster basis. And getting appropriate feedback from the community and from the attorneys is important as well. I had a case not too long ago that the parties went to mediation. They reached an agreement in mediation, but the court didn't advise us of the mediated agreement until the Friday before the Tuesday where we had court, so we weren't able to prepare the document. The challenge from my perspective is, I thought about it if I was sitting as judge, I may never have known about that unless somebody comes to me and says, listen, here's what happened. We didn't get this in time to prepare it, to finalize it so that this matter could be resolved. I would never know about that. So it's creating an environment where people can give you feedback and then taking that feedback and making the appropriate procedural changes to make the court run smoother for the parties, because it's really about, the role is really about the people, right? And trying to make it easier theoretically and better for the people.
Sure. We're speaking with Pete Kirner, candidate for domestic relations judge here in Medina County. Pete, what skills do you feel you bring to the role of domestic relations judge?
Well, I've been doing this work for 16 years now. I know I've been to probably in front of 50 to 60 judges and magistrates. I've seen a lot of bad, I've seen a lot of good, and I have the ability to solve problems very well. I'm going to take what I learned that was good from all the people that I've practiced in front of, and I'm going to apply that to the court. I've been losing sleep trying to figure out, how I'm going to put in place all these processes and procedures. But every time I start thinking about it, I have to tell myself we got to get past November 8th first, and then we can move on to phase 2 of what we're going to do to make the court run better for everybody.
Now, in terms of, as you've gone door to door and you've been speaking with the constituents, I know one of the big topics has always been the building of the new courthouse or the expansion of the courthouse. What have been your thoughts along that process? I know domestic relations is still going to maintain itself in the older part of the building, but what have you heard from constituents, and just kind of what's been your opinion?
As a matter of fact, the issue hasn't been raised one time while I'm out there. So I've been knocking on doors since April. I've been to about 7,500 doors, and I haven't heard anything about it. In regards to my personal opinion, I know the old courthouse was, it had aged. It had some challenges. I remember being in the court one time, and there was a pipe running down with water leaking from the roof. So from my perspective, it was needed. It's a beautiful building. I haven't been inside of the new courthouse yet, but I can see it through the window. I think the upgrade, I'm assuming there's going to be new technology in all the courtrooms. I think it's a very positive thing.
Sure. Again, speaking with Pete Kirner, candidate for domestic relations judge here in Medina County. Pete, what would you say are some of your skill sets or leadership skills that differentiate you from your opponent you're running against? I've been,
I would say my biggest skill set is my understanding of what people are going through, and my ability to help navigate them towards settlement. The problem-solving skills I have, when you deal with divorces, especially when you deal with custody, you're talking about a lot of minute issues, right? Scheduling, extracurricular activities, parenting time, so on and so forth. And you really have to drill down to see what somebody is making an argument about. What do they want and why? And then finding a solution to do that. So if somebody's just arguing about time, right, and you can differentiate between summer parenting time and in-school parenting time, and if you can create a balance for those people, it certainly helps move the ball forward towards settlement. Trial is costly and expensive. There are some cases that require trial, and I understand that, but settlement and helping people move towards settlement is certainly a better approach than just saying, okay, trial starts this day. So the problem-solving skills and the ability to understand and drill down is really a strong skill set that I have from this duration of time. Again, so many cases I've handled as a guardian ad litem where I've actually gotten into these cases, gotten involved, and really helped these things come to resolution.
Mm-hmm. Again, speaking with Pete Kirner, domestic relations candidate for domestic relations judge here in Medina County. Pete, I want to thank you for taking time to answer my questions. It's been great to speak with you today, but I want to make sure I give you the opportunity in case there's something I didn't touch on or you want to let the voters know. I'm going to turn the mic over to you.
Sure, I appreciate that. So the most important thing that I have to say is that I have focused experience on domestic relations law. I've been doing this work for 16 years. It's been the majority of my practice. I would say every day I've worked on a domestic relations case in one way or the other. My work as guardian, my work as parenting coordinator are all things that make me an appropriate candidate or make me the appropriate person to get your vote come November 8th. So certainly appreciate it. I appreciate the time, and I appreciate your support and your vote on November 8th. Thank you.
And thank you. Again, Pete Kirner, candidate for domestic relations judge here in Medina County. Pete, thank you for being part of the political process, and I wish you the best of luck this November.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.